Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. It's time for that mod collection demo shop update. The guys were definitely in the Halloween spirit this week, so let's go ahead and dive in. Leading off is a Les Paul tribute done up in what they called skeleton stripe finish. Not exactly sure if I'm getting skeleton vibes from this, but we've got some lines on it, white knobs, changed up some plastics and hardware, and sadly the back isn't too special. But if I was going to name this, I would have called it the Trainee, because it reminds me of a Crimson Division guitar that was done in 2015 called the Hitman. Now this one, obviously, we've got the pinstripes as like a suit. They also did it on the headstock. But you've got some other elements on here that make it what this one is. A custom one-off art piece, which we talked about this one on the show a long time back. It's still available at $7,000. I remember at that time that seemed crazy, but now that the market's a little bit different, that's starting to almost make sense. If you like this design anyways. So $7,000 custom shop Les Paul custom versus this $1,600 tribute. I mean, you get similar vibes for a lot less. But check out the 70s Flying V. There were two guitars I was tempted to buy this week, and this was one of them. Because I'm curious, what do bass pickups sound like in a guitar? I always thought that would be too taboo to do it, but the mod collection guys just keep doing it, so I want to try it. But sadly, I was not quick enough to the punch on this one, due to a glitch that I think is on my end cookie-wise. But you have a very interesting metallic blue color here, instead of the original white finish, and the orange pickguard kind of has some interesting vibes. It would have made for a good review and demo. But they called that Sea Space Green with metallic propulsion pickguard. As far as these guys go, not a bad price. But now, number 2, Antique Walnut Burst. So this is one of those like 2018 style Flying Vs when they strangely had the Gibson logo going like this instead of a big truss rod cover on it. I've always kind of liked this as a limited edition, but they also ambered over the logo, gave it ultra aged hardware. And then if we zoom in here on the body, you can see they rather crudely added a 4th control here because they have some different pickups in here. So this is a mini humbucker, but you normally don't see those things without their cover on it. So that's why it looks so freaky and strange. But then you have pole pieceless covers in the neck and bridge. I thought this thing looked fantastic. However, as I hummed and hawed on this thing at $2,100, I just wasn't quite convinced yet. The back, they bursted the body and the headstock, but they left the neck out. I kind of think it looks cool like that as well. However, had this just been a full-on burst job, I probably would have bought it, because it's looking like they didn't burst the edges of this thing either. I figured I've got enough guitars waiting for full reviews and demos. And now this one, a custom done up in what they called Hallowidow. I mean, I get it, they were trying to blend Les Paul widowed specs onto a custom and do Halloween, but this isn't a widow. A widow refers to when they just spray over the entire guitar, they don't scrape the binding, and it gives it an interesting colored effect. I've documented quite a few on the show, and you can find tons of examples available online. So this one, it's a purple Les Paul custom, which is really cool. All blacked out, witch hat knobs, but we still have the stark white binding, so not necessarily a widow here. Still have your ebony fretboard, but then when we get to our headstock, they did spray a color over just the inlays, but they spared the binding. So I guess we haven't really thought about what do we call these guitars, because it's kind of like the widows, but not fully. We need a new term. And then the back of this one was desperately crying for a black stinger, but it didn't get it. But that one is demo shop number 36 and sold for $4,800. Next up is another tribute that's been dressed up to be expensive. Jacko Burst, as they call it. The whole saving feature of this one is your green stem knobs right here. It's beautiful. I like it. But you've got your Dirty Fingers Plus pickups, spooky Gibson logo, and they at least refinished the back of the body, and I think these colors jive well enough with each other that it works for the whole pumpkin stuff. They gave it a case, so that's a nice upgrade. But how about this? 1950s Les Paul Standard reissue in cool cyan. Not very spooky, but interesting because they're not actually saying it's a specific reissue of anything. So we've got a P90 in the neck, a humbucker in the bridge, we've got an ABR1, and then we have some sort of this thing going on. We look on the back, they refinished this and left the neck brown. That looks strange. This one is demo shop number 32, but since they're not calling it a specific reissue, it made me curious. What model have we seen recently come out with a P90 in the neck and a humbucker in the bridge that hasn't sold very well? My friends, this is a made-over Sergio Vallín. I guarantee it. They just took the Bigsby off, probably filled it in, did the refinish. Now, I could be wrong, but I mean, these guys had the low logo and everything, as they would, and they still haven't sold out of these things regularly, so throwing one of these at discount might not make dealers happy. And I would say they radically transformed it enough that your average viewer probably wouldn't notice. I just wish they would have went with a better color, because that's a pretty good discount on one of those. And as a sister model to that one, we've got WYRON Aqua SG Standard. Is this a hiding Tony Iommi? No, I don't think so, but I like this. I know I kind of talked down on that 61 in the Faded series review, which you can check out in this episode, but I think if they introduced some crazy colors on it, it kind of works better. I like being able to see the wood grain through this aqua finish. And the Moto Guard works pretty well with the chrome hardware. A nice full-on refin. But this next one, I really like. Standard 50s in what they called Seatown Brown. I have a feeling that it's in reference to the sports team, because they've got similar colors and stripes going on. And finding a guitar guy that likes the Cleveland Browns, probably not that hard. I just thought these colors really complemented each other. This reminds me exactly of the Scorpion series. These ones just had darker edges, so you couldn't really see the flame top as much. But some colors like this one were just a dark purple on the edge. That's kind of what makes those things fascinating. Here's a really good shot of one of those in the light. And then they top it off with the Stinger with a striking orange finish. That color looks awesome. I love that neck. You can see the wood grain and everything below it. And now we've got Bearheart Brown Metallic. Is it in reference to another sports team? I don't know. I'm not the biggest sports guy, but it's an interesting metallic brown finish. Matches real great with that fretboard, but surprisingly, still has a red back. Continuing on, we have another rose gold custom, this time straying even further from the typical rose gold attributes, being all blacked out. But an interesting offering nonetheless. Seems really out of place to have a white pearloid backplate when the front is trying to be a tough guy. And then this SG Special had an interesting attribute to it. Autumn Burst at 1600, they have one of those conversion plates on it, so you might be able to take this back to a wrap tail, but they have one of those Kirk Hammett style bridges on here. And then instead of installing a traditional tailpiece, they just screwed one of those EDS 1275 style things. And it looks like it's got a new satin refinish with goof hiding rings for P90s. It's kind of fascinating. Not enough to buy to document, but it's got some cool colors on the back too. And then this darn thing. I thought for sure this was a dressed up Les Paul Modern. They get us all the time making it look like something that it's not. But this time, it's not. It's a Les Paul Standard 60s. They gave it gold hardware. They gave it this very vibrant finish. I love it. But you can still see the flame through it. So it's like the best of both worlds. The custom pickguard is a great attribute on this thing. Not too much changed on our headstock, nor on the back. However, you get some very nice fuzzy wood grain. But not bad for $2,800. That's a cool custom color. Then a really spooky Axcess custom. And Axcess in general is kind of spooky, but having the Floyd Rose with the Voodoo pickups, yep, that works. And then we had one of those old custom shop 70s flying Vs that they didn't really change too much on besides give it a new satin finish. Similar story on this Gibson USA Explorer. And lastly, one of those USA Casinos. Oh my goodness. I was ready to write this one off. Everything looks about the same to me. Oh. What's that knob and box doing there? The modifications consist of a flanger circuit and battery box installed on the treble side horn. And apparently it only works on the neck pickup. Okay. That makes me angry because Lord Genmo was supposed to have that and they said, nope, couldn't be done. We give up. But then they go do it on one of these? Well, why do you need a flanger on this guitar? That's funny. I appreciate the inventiveness, but we need more photos of that. All right, that's it for the mod collection. Check out the demo shop. A couple of okay players pieces, but a few fascinating ones. Starting with the Mac Daddy was an exclusive custom paint called Regal Plum. This was a standard 50s, but it appears to be a satin finish. And it's got the whole black and gold mixing and the whole Les Paul model silkscreen not being present thing going on. And the back is natural. I agree with that. So with Gibson offering a satin finish standard now for $24.99, $100 for a custom finish on that, not a bad deal. This Custom Shop SG, I just thought it was an okay price at $3,300. Custom Shop SGs don't hold value very well, but you know, after a certain point they do. It's just if you're trying to get brand new price on them, there's not a huge market. The 60 Standard in Unburst, I thought it had a pretty nice top. Nice and wavy, but not like too wavy, but not too pinstripey, a nice in between. This one, when I first saw it, I swore it was a Custom Shop. But no, it's just a regular 60s, but okay, it's one of the AAA flame tops. So that is a good deal. This buttercream custom, we've seen a few of these, but what really sold this one to me is you can tell just how creamed out it is by the creamy zebra bobbin pickups here. Other interesting defects to note, the mod stamp actually did more damage to the finish. And then it looks like maybe some accidental finish checking here when they were installing the pickups. And by the knobs, maybe it was dropped. Then they had another 356. It's got an interesting top, and the back is all mahogany. Following is a Gibson 63 SG Custom. They took the pickup covers off and completely transformed the look of it. That thing looks mean now. 5000's not too bad for one of those if that's what you're really after. And then another double neck at 65. I didn't see anything too special about that one though. But now let's check out the European side of things. These bad boys actually updated twice this week. They don't always do that, and they came out with some real bangers. So obviously, we've got more of these special DC tributes to work through, but what caught my attention about this one was it was listed as fair. And the European side of things, sometimes you can find some really beat up ones. And look at that, somebody wore straight through the finish. This had to have been on loan to an artist, and they just got to play it, or maybe it was at one of their showcases, because that's one of the early 2019 ones. Wow, that's very early. But on top of the rash, it's got a bunch of buckle worming, so that thing was used. And no, I'm not showing you the same guitar twice. This one was labeled as good, but I wanted to share this one with you because it had a little bit of flamed figuring within the neck. Nothing too crazy, and the photos don't do a good job at showing it, but there should be something to keep your attention. But I was telling you, on the USA side of things, $5,000 on one of those SG Customs would be an okay price. Look at this over here, including value-added tax. Remember, America still has anywhere between usually 6 to 10% depending on what state you live in that you add to the price after the fact. Whereas Europe, they just throw that out front at you right away. That's $5,000 including all that. This is a screaming deal for this particular market. Now, it doesn't look like it's one of the anniversary versions. Although it was built in that year, they might have just took those parts off of it. But besides a ding on the front by the trem system, which that happened on my review piece, so it's nothing to really be that scared of. There's just a couple of finish checks, maybe some stand rash. Not a bad price. They also had some nice prices on 60 standards. I mean, you can't beat that price in that market. I don't see how they keep selling them so cheap. They even had left-handed R9s for a pretty fair price. Now, to be honest, the top isn't the best, but I bet it would look better in person. And it doesn't even appear to be all that beat up. Although if I had to choose one, I'd probably go with this because I like all the mineral streaking, but lefties can't be choosers. But wow, that back is striking. I like that one. But check this thing out, a 356. 5A quilt. It looks like a 355 version of a 339. That thing is crazy. And it's from 2014 if I remember correctly. Now, it's got some scratches, but that is a unique piece. And then they have this crazy thing. Custom color 63 SG. Got your Maestro Vibrola, all the sparkles, chrome hardware. Yeah, that's easily worth what they want for it. And then speaking of older guitars, here is a 50th anniversary SG. I just had somebody comment a few videos ago that they didn't know Gibson made 24 fret SGs. Yeah, they're out there if you know what models you're looking for. And if the SG Zoot suit is way too crazy for you, this is what always comes to my mind when somebody wants a regular 24 fret SG that has, all your typical attributes of an SG standard, but with the added bonus of having a little bit of extra blingage here. Now, there's a lot of SGs that actually incorporate this logo, but this is one of the versions. Then to wrap things up, we got a couple of cool 335s. So this is the Aqua Marine finish. I remember when this thing was out. I always thought it was kind of interesting, but I never noticed the back also had the burst. But not only that, the neck. I love this. It reminds me of the old L5 Studios of like the late 90s, early 2000s. Maybe this one's aged a little bit and that's why we can see it more. But that mahogany neck mixed with those colors really pops everything. I mean, you can see it here. Nice blues, slight green, but then the mahogany neck turns like a darker green because the wood underneath that finish is a darker color than the maple. A fascinating piece that was definitely used. And then this is another rare finish, 335, and I believe they called this finish double gold back then, but that is a very, 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 very striking gold that had a narrow escape from death, apparently. All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed this week's recap. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.